Welcome to the Emerging Pearl Show, where you'll discover inspiration to embrace a life defined by love, passion, healing, and serenity. I'm Selena Maestas, your guest host, defender of self-love, and the founder of the Love You More Project. I am so honored to be invited to host a show that's in alignment with my passion of helping women value their significance in this world and teach them how to make themselves a priority. At times, our self-value and self-acceptance can be eroded by others if we don't have the skills and the tools in place to protect ourselves from these potential emotional dangers. Today, we get to discuss how to navigate through challenging relationships, including the relationship you have with yourself. I'd like to introduce one of our guests, Dr. Raquel Muller. She's a licensed psychologist who is devoted to helping women attain self-acceptance, self-love, and self-care so they may experience more joy and fulfillment in all aspects of their lives. We're also so excited to have Kym Gordon-Cumbo, divorce resilience coach with Ignite Change Coaching. Kym guides women over 40 through the journey of divorce. She's accredited with the International Coach Federation and has certifications as a Reiki Master, Laughter Yoga Leader, and Circle Facilitators. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
An area that many women find challenging, whether married or with a partner, is around communication with that significant person in their lives. So, in your experience, Dr. Muller, where does communication breakdown really begin?
Well, I must say, first of all, that conflict is a part of many interpersonal relationships, and especially in intimate relationships. And when people are trying to communicate to resolve conflict, something that often happens is that our minds get flooded with negative thoughts about the other person. So for example, if I'm having a fight with my husband, I might say, oh, he's such a jerk, he doesn't listen, he doesn't have a right to feel that way, or he shouldn't have done that. And these thoughts are not only negative, but they're often also distorted, which means that they don't really represent reality accurately. So if I'm using a label like, he's a jerk, I'm making a characterization about his person in total. I'm not defining or describing a behavior. I'm describing him as a person, that he's always that way. And that's not really true, is it? Because I'm just focusing on negative aspects, and I'm not paying attention to any positive behaviors or redeeming qualities, just focusing on the negative. And so, it's easy to see how that could work to the detriment of effective communication when we're trying to resolve conflict. And then something else that happens is sometimes we're more invested in being right or in blaming the other person for what's going wrong, as opposed to focusing on what we can do to resolve the problem, right? And so I think that motivational aspect is really important. We have to ask ourselves, do I care more about being right and, about what's fair and right, or do I, want to focus more on developing a greater connection, a stronger sense of intimacy with my partner?
So you're talking about changing the dynamics?
Yeah, yeah.
So in your experience, what's the first thing we should consider when we're trying to change the dynamics in a challenging relationship?
So the first thing to remember is really that we cannot change another person. We can't force anyone to change. The only person that we can change is ourselves. And that can be a bitter pill to swallow, because it's saying we're taking responsibility and we're no longer blaming the other person. We're wanting to make changes in ourselves. And it doesn't seem fair, because if we feel like the other person is acting badly, why should we have to change, right? And so that's kind of a challenge. David Burns developed a very elegant model for effective communication, and he called it EAR, which stands for empathy, assertiveness, and respect. And empathy is all about trying to understand the other person's point of view, where they're coming from, what they're thinking and feeling. And assertiveness has to do with us expressing the way that we feel, the way that we see the situation. And then finally, respect is simply being respectful. So talking with the other person in an open way and listening, not being condescending, not being judgmental, not being critical. So that's the other really key piece.
Great, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And I understand in your practice that you use a communication model that outlines the 5 secrets of effective communication. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes. So the 5 secrets of effective communication is also a model that was developed by David Burns out of Stanford University. And the 5 secrets, as he calls them, are first, the disarmament technique, which basically is trying to find a grain of truth in what the other person is saying, even if it sounds irrational and it doesn't make sense to us. So for example, if my husband says to me, "Oh, you never listen," I might say, instead of getting defensive, a more effective way of doing it might be saying, I can see that you're kind of angry with me right now, and you're right, the truth is I haven't been doing a good job of listening, and so I can see why you would be upset. And so right away what that does is it kind of lowers the defenses so that better communication can start to happen. So that's one of the secrets, yeah. And then the next one is about thought and feeling empathy, which has to do with understanding the content of what the other person is saying. That's the thought empathy. And the feeling empathy is relating to the feelings that they're trying to convey. The third secret is called inquiry. And inquiry is all about asking questions so that we can A, make sure that we understand exactly what the other person's saying, and feeling, and then B, so that we can invite them to express more of that, of what they're thinking and feeling. The fourth secret is called I feel statements, and that's the assertiveness piece in the EAR model, which is us expressing our point of view in an open and direct way. And then finally, the final secret, the fifth secret, is called stroking, and that has to do with expressing genuine caring and respect, treating the other person with dignity, even if we don't agree with them. So those are the 5 secrets, and they lead to a lot better communication than the alternative. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
That was I feel like I need to come see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. That's great. So Kym, I'm really excited to hear what you have to say on this topic. So your focus is on divorce and working with women through that journey. And divorce is one of the most traumatic and challenging events a woman can experience, and I can attest for that as well. Tell me, how can a woman build her resilience after divorce?
Well, Selena, resilience comes in many shapes and forms. So it's a little bit different for every woman. Kind of how you would approach a diet, per se. Some people go for the physical, some people go for the mental, some people go for the nutritional. So in divorce, one of the key things to do is to surround yourself with support. And that could be a psychologist or a therapist. It could be a 12-step group. It could be a friend who can really listen to you. Though sometimes it's really hard to find empathetic friends who know how to listen and just won't interject their story and then tell you the pile of blah, blah, blah about that other guy. So that's one of the key things to do, is to get some support first. And then to take care of yourself. Because a lot of times what happened to me is I got ear infections. A lot of my divorce was all very somatically based. And so I got ear infections to the point where I couldn't hear in both ears, and it could not be fixed for 3 months.
Wow.
I had low back spasms, which did not go away for a year until I addressed my emotions. So it's very important, like Dr. Muller was talking about, to acknowledge your emotions. And so that's where therapy can be useful, and also the act of journaling. So support, self-care, taking care of yourself, going to the doctor, making sure you're getting all the necessary female
Your tune-up
appointments. Yes, your tune-ups are very important to help get you through the divorce and then the journey of recovering and reclaiming your life afterwards.
Kym, can you tell us about some of the mindset techniques that you use with your clients?
One of the mindset practices I like to use with my clients is called the empowerment dynamic, the power of TED, and that was discovered by, or developed by, David Emerald. And what it does is it takes the persecutor and turns that into a challenger. So sometimes in divorce, maybe he slept with another woman or your best friend or whatever, and now you're punishing him for that. So you're the perpetrator, okay? And he's the victim. And then maybe the kids are coming in to intervene to rescue that relationship. So I take what is happening negatively and then see how we can switch it positively. So then the victim becomes a coach who looks forward and chooses action to take so that she can move on in her life or to deal with this situation with this soon-to-be former partner. Or with a rescuer, the rescuer becomes a challenger. And you can have a positive challenger or a destructive challenger. So, and the challenger can be situations or people. So like the divorce is a challenger. And so you look at the deconstruction of that divorce to find the gold within the process and the situation and within yourself. And then a victim becomes the creator. And so the creator then decides, what do I want now? How can I move forward?
Oh, that's the good part.
And then the coach and the creator kind of shift back and forth to support one another in taking little baby steps. And that's just a small portion of it, but that's my favorite tool to start with.
Thank you for all of that, Kym. I appreciate it. It's really great information, and I like that way that you described all those different tools that you use. But what are the key steps a woman should keep in mind when she has to now interact with her ex?
Most importantly is what is the intent and the outcome. So if the intent is to discuss a parenting plan, and she already has the background information that it might be difficult, then she knows that she's going to have to take the high road in this conversation, which means that she has to pay attention to the power that she feels walking into the room or the conversation. Maybe it's with a mediator. So maybe she does some laughter beforehand. Maybe she assumes some of Amy Cuddy's power poses. Maybe she says some affirmations to herself, but she prepares her mind mentally and herself emotionally for the interaction. And then makes a commitment to remaining calm and listening to the other person, even though that other person may not be so calm and so rational.
Right. That's good. That really makes me think about those interactions with people. Like exes. Well, thank you both for sharing your information, your viewpoints on challenging relationships and communication styles and things like that. I appreciate that. So to add in my version of how this all works, challenging relationships are going to be there in different forms throughout our lives. And what I've discovered is that it's really important that we understand and get real with the relationship with ourselves. I fully believe that relationship is the one that we need to nurture and care for the most. Self-love, self-care, all of those things, we need to be okay with making ourselves a priority because that is going to have this ripple effect downward onto everyone that's around you. And if you aren't taking care of yourself, then there's no way that you're going to be able to be very present for your relationship or feel strong in who you are to either maybe get out of a relationship that's challenging or to even put the work into making it better. And I know that a lot of people think that, making yourselves a priority, that might make you feel contracted or feel selfish, that I shouldn't do that. But we have to really think of it as a non-negotiable. That's what I believe, because without that, we're just not whole people, and it's really hard to be in a relationship if you're part of a person and not a whole person. One way that I like to accentuate this, just I think it's easier for people to wrap their minds around, is if you are a business owner or an employer and you have this employee that's like rock star. This person is the one that makes the business thrive, and that person gets ill and isn't performing. As an employer, you're going to do everything in your power to make sure that person takes some time off, gets some rest, goes sees a doctor, takes care of themselves because you want your business to thrive. So what if we switch that around and think of this as the business of our own lives? Who is the greatest asset there? We are. And if we don't do that same nurturing and caring and loving acts towards ourselves, we're not going to thrive in our own lives. So why wouldn't we treat ourselves the same way we would treat an employee? That's the way I like to think of it. So
Nice.
thank you. I think it illustrates it really, really well. And especially if we are business owners, we know what that feels like. Like, we need our business to run. We need our lives to run the way that we want them, that feels good for all people involved. So I don't know about you ladies, but I have noticed in this journey for myself on learning how to love myself more that I'm having my children have become more challenging as they get older. But I've noticed that as much as I'm trying to make myself a priority, it's a challenge because they want to be the priority. And it becomes a struggle, like, between us. So I don't know what your relationships are with your children, but I'd love to know, like, how do you handle difficult challenges with your kids?
Yeah. Well, for myself, I think, I try to think back on the 5 secrets. And when they tell me something, for example, that they're upset about, something happened at school, or they didn't do so well on something, or they're worried about something, I try to give them lots of empathy. Try to start there. That's one of the first secrets, right? Is talk about, I can understand what you're saying. So you're saying, oh, you flunked the test. Wow, that's a bummer. Yeah, I can see that you're really disappointed about that, and that's totally understandable. And I'm sad to see that you're so disappointed. So I'm using the I feel there. I feel sad because I'm watching how disappointed you are, and it's not a good feeling, right? And then throwing out questions. So what do you think needs to happen from here? What do you think would maybe help make things better, the next time around? Or what do you think you could do in that relationship with your friend to make things better between the two of you right now? And so kind of get them, talking, but also giving them a lot of empathy and understanding, encourage them to keep talking. And I think that alone, it helps them feel heard and understood, and then hopefully empowered to, take action.
So validating their feelings and then giving them tools to move forward. Because I know with my kids, they're so young that I validate, and then sometimes I forget to give them the tools to like be able to handle that situation again in their own way.
Well, and I think that the tools, I don't know that we necessarily have to tell them what to do, but I think in asking them questions, it kind of helps them generate their own solutions. Right. And then if they're really, really stuck, then we could say, well, one thing you might try is, this. What do you think about that? How do you think that might work? And see what they think about it, so that they can own it and take the path that they feel most comfortable with as well. Right.
Make it their own idea.
Exactly.
Right? Because kids don't ever want it to be,
exactly.
Mom told me I should do this, because that doesn't work. Kym, what about you?
Well, what I was thinking about was that for me, it's important for me to be centered and grounded in myself and to be present with them. Because I found, my kids are all grown now and I have grandchildren, but what I found when I was raising them was that if I wasn't present, I couldn't listen to them. If I was distracted, driving, cooking dinner, it was just impossible for me to really give them the empathy that they deserve. For me, what worked really well, even though I mentioned driving being a distraction, sometimes my boys especially, in the back seat of the car, we're driving to a sports event, and they'll just tell me about their day, or we'll be out bike riding, and my son will just open up to what's going on. So it's also about being able to be available in a way that you didn't expect.
Right.
So sometimes the unusual can work to your advantage.
I like that. And I like how you said being present. As I'm learning to take care of myself more and not worry so much about what everybody else thinks of me, I close my computer more often. And when you work from home, most of us are on our computers. Close it, make space for the kids. We read together every night now, and that has changed everything. It's been so nice. So that being present, I really agree. If we can do that, everyone benefits. Benefits.
And it doesn't even take that much time. Sometimes we feel like it's going to take a lot of time away from our scheduled activities, but really just a few minutes, being present, being completely just there and listening, it can make a huge difference.
Yeah, it shows them that they do have a place, that they are important to us, which of course we all want that. We all want to feel love, safety, and belonging. That's just the human condition. So thank you, Dr. Muller and Kym. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really do applaud the important work that you're doing in the world and for the passion you have for making a difference in women's lives and really which trickles down to everybody else, so everyone's lives. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, it was fun.
Oh, good.
Oh, yeah.
Had a good time. So I also wanted to take a moment to thank our behind-the-scenes director and producer, Elisa Bonet. Elisa based this show on her lifestyle and wellness company, The Emerging Pearl. As a speaker, essential oil educator, mentor, and facilitator, she is passionate about supporting women struggling with the lingering effects of fibromyalgia, anxiety, depression, trauma, and abuse. You can learn more about her, our guests, and complimentary sessions available by emailing the show. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe to our channel below. Thank you for joining us today, and remember to reveal your inner pearl.